Hey guys, this is Stereo Police back with this time a series of, look at that, you just popped out of nowhere, a series of videos. And well, I wasn't really sure how I was going to approach this this series of videos because, well, I feared that it could get out of hand with too many vids and too lengthy and a bore fest. And I kind of alluded to this in one of my most recent one or two vids that I made. But, well, I bought a kit. And I'll get to that in a minute. And I haven't built a kit in decades. I remember building them growing up. When I was a kid, Heath kit, of course, comes to mind. I used to go down to the Heath kit store. We had one not too far from where I lived. Used to have Mom take me in there, and they had displays set up, and you could buy the kits there. And of course, most of them were way too expensive. They had some audio kits too. At one point they had speakers and amps, and all those things were way expensive. And probably as a kid I wouldn't have been able to build them anyway. I would have screwed them up big time. But they had little things like radios and crystal radios and transistor radios and lights and other things, you know. And I loved doing that. Had a Radio Shack soldering iron, you know, and got things to work. It was fun. And so, well, let me backtrack a little bit, because I'm starting out sitting in my backyard. I was sitting here thinking about how I was going to approach the series of videos, and by the way, my kit's being delivered today, UPS. I'm sitting here waiting for the UPS guy to come rolling down the street, and I was trying to think, how am I going to approach this, because this is going to be actually unboxing, discussing the operational theory of the amp. It's an amplifier kit. Going through the process of building it, you know, periodically doing updates, and it'll be kind of a review of the, you know, how well the instructions are, and of how easy it is to build, and, you know, is there anything weird or complicated, or all the way through to its completion, its testing, and then listening. And all of those things are going to be included in the video, but I was thinking, well, you know, I've got to do this right. I've got to, you know, because most of my other videos start out just like this, when I'm, you know, blabbering way too much. I get on tangents all the time, and so I figured, I'll try to professionalize this one a little bit, you know, make it snazzy. And so I thought, well, okay, I've got to do editing, and I got to write scripts. You know, you got to script some of these things so you don't come off. You know, all of my videos are extemporaneous, tangential, and ooh, check it out. Oh, check this out. Man, there's the UPS guy. Well, how about that? Talk about timing. There's going to be a package on my front porch. So we're going to walk around there and grab it. And so as I walk, I'll talk here. And by the way, if you're new to my videos, if this video attracts new viewers because you're interested in the kit, you obviously know what it is because it's going to be in the title. Well, and I've said this in my other videos, but I'll say it to anyone new to mine. My videos are not for the attention deficit disorder crowd. They run a little long, a little philosophical, like I said earlier, tangential. And so, you know, I'm gonna go around the other way. You know, I just saw my neighbor. I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to. What was I talking about? I'm already off. But so they're kind of long and slow, and they're more of a journey. They're more of a journey than they are, and hopefully they're educational and they're interesting, but they're just more of a process, a journey. Kind of slow going, but they eventually get there. So they're meant to be watched at nighttime when you're chilling out, really. I hadn't even got out of the truck yet. I gotta wait. So, oh, he did. Okay. So, let's go grab the box. As you can tell, I'm completely unscripted. Where's the box? Not on the porch. Oh. All right. Oh, God. Jeez. Can you believe my wife already took it in? Well, anyway. Let me go in and grab that box. Take it around back. And we'll talk more about this kit. Hang on just a second. All right. So I've got the box in my hand. So what was I talking about? All right. So I haven't built a kit in a long time. Oh yeah, and I wanted to make this a much more professional video, but then reality set in, time constraints, limitations, and the thing was being delivered today. I'm gonna set the box down in a minute and have a look at it. Carrying it with my left hand. There's that butterfly. Voila. Oh, there it is. Cool. GT-102 stereo power amplifier from a company whose name I don't know how to pronounce. I'll attempt it in a minute. So, back to the video thing. So I thought, well, you know, anyway. So this is going to be one of my usual videos where I just, and I made some notes. I had some notes and I was putting together some slides. And it all just fell apart because I wasn't finished yet, and I was jotting down miscellaneous things I wanted to talk about. And then the box arrived, and the UPS man screwed me up. Didn't have enough time to prep, but I have a break now between work. I work from home here all the time. I'm taking a little break, so I figured now's the time. I got the butterfly. He likes the amp. Now's the time I'm going to get started. So, as usual, I'm unscripted, but I have notes. And there are quite a few things I want to talk about. And like I said, just to give you some organization here, like I say, I want to talk about, well, first of all, the name of this company, and then the purchasing process. I even want to begin with why. You know, why would I buy this thing? Why do I want to do this? We'll begin with that. Why buy it? What's the purpose? What's the point? I have an amp. I have my AS 1100. I love it. Integrated amp. Open the door here. No cuts. No editing. There's Jasper. There's the AS11. And by the way, that's my reference amp. That's the best amp I've ever owned in terms of my ears, in terms of its sound. I love it. And I just noticed in the latest edition of Stereophile, Yamaha, it's the first ad I've seen for the AS series amps. It's a full page ad too. Makes me wonder if they're trying to get it reviewed. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure you know what I'm saying. And I told you before in a previous video, I'd love for that thing to get reviewed. It would, I've reviewed it, and I think it's fantastic, but it's just no major publications ever reviewed it, and it's just an awesome sounding amp. I want to peel this sticker off on the top with my name and stuff on it. I don't want that. I don't want that to be. I don't need that kind of trouble. Alright. Okie doke. So, let me start out with why. And there's a reason this amp is on my bench right now. I'll explain to you that in a minute. So, why buy a kit? Well, I as I mentioned earlier, I haven't built a kit in a long time. So that's reason number one. Reason number one. And I've been wanting to, but I just haven't gotten around to it. So there are a couple more reasons. Number two, this amplifier is, and I'm going to get into the design of it in a little bit, is a pretty interesting, I won't say unique, but very unusual mixture of technology in terms of how it's constructed. It deviates from the norm, let me put it that way. And in two ways it deviates from the norm. I'm going to get into more of this in just a little bit, but one way is it uses an integrated circuit amplifier, basically a power op amp. And most high-end equipment steers away from that. They're discretely designed circuitry. And another reason that this amp is unusual is it uses a regulated power supply. And there are pros and cons to that, and there are many reasons why you would not want to use a regulated power supply. But then there are some good reasons why you would. And I'll get into those pros and cons a little later. So it couples a regulated power supply with this integrated circuit. I forget which one it is now. I know it's an LM, Texas Instruments LM30, whatever. I'll look at my notes in a little bit. We'll talk more about that. Then it uses an integrated circuit. And I'm going to talk more about ICs. Now, one of the things is and I've mentioned this in previous videos, I steer away from integrated circuits in the signal path. I've criticized them, their usage in the past, and I guess I have sort of integrated circuit IC phobia, and I'll probably talk more about that later. So I figured, okay, let me try to overcome that IC phobia. Let's see how good an integrated circuit can sound. And that's one reason. Now I've had an IC amp based amp before, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later too. And it was really good. But that was most of my criticisms about ICs have been in the department of using op amps in the preamplification stages. I've always thought that was a cheesy way to go. In the preamplification stages, I would prefer to see discrete circuitry, but that's here nor there. So I wanted to see how good this IC amp can sound, particularly coupled with a regulated power supply. And I'm just looking at my notes. I did jot down some whys here. Why would I want to? Okay, so for years I've been seeing this amp advertised in the dark musty back pages of Stereophile, you know, a little tiny ad, and you know, I just didn't think anything of it, although a couple times I considered it, you know, a while ago. But then finally Stereophile comes along and actually reviews the amp. And I think it was in their June, it might have been June 2018. I throw them out after I read them. I don't keep them, so I don't have that around. But they reviewed it, and the review was favorable. Now, I've also I've flat right said it in some previous videos that I don't give a lot of credence to those reviews. I read them for amusement a lot of times, and I've got some real issues, and I won't get into it with some of the things that are said about some of the equipment. But I find it oftentimes entertaining and sometimes informative. So nevertheless, I read the magazine and other magazines too. So it just so happened that I currently don't have any projects. Nothing on the workbench except for this, and there's a reason for that I'll get to in a minute. So I figured, okay, what the heck? So let's talk about the purchasing. I figured, okay, I'll break down and buy it. So maybe, and again, I don't jot down the specifics, but it might have been, today's Wednesday, it might have been Saturday I purchased it, or Friday. I forget, it was only a few days ago. And I got on the website, and it said there's a link to an Amazon. You can buy it from Amazon, so I linked to it, but Amazon didn't have any. So I went back to the website, and through their website, I'm hesitant to even pronounce the name. I'll get to that in a minute. I purchased it. It was very easy. Paid by PayPal. It was kind of pleasant because I didn't know I had a PayPal balance from a previous sale that I made. Like, whoa, I got a balance. So I forgot about that balance. It's been sitting there for months or maybe longer. So I figured, wow, okay, this amp is like only $100 because of my balance. I thought, oh, that's cool. So I bought it. The next day I received a very nice email from Dan, and he turns out to be the designer and I guess the owner of the company. I'm not sure. And it was a very pleasant experience, and sent me a tracking number, and the thing came like 2 days later, 3 days later, I don't know. It seemed very quick, very rapid. So the purchasing experience was fantastic, top notch. The personal touch from Dan was awesome, and he also invited me to ask any questions that I had. You know, he was very accessible, very friendly. So absolute top notch, excellent purchasing experience. So far so good. The overall price I paid was $314. Of course, my PayPal balance took care of a chunk of that, thank goodness. Plus shipping, which I think was $26, I think. But, so anyway, let me finish up the whys. So back to why, well, all those reasons I said, plus back to the idea of building a kit. And I think that's really the point here. The point here is, I don't think this is supposed to be an amplifier that's going to compete with $5,000 amplifiers, obviously. But I'm very curious to see how it's going to stack up against my AS1100 and this thing right here. And there's a reason I have this thing out. Don't let me forget. Remind me if I forget. So I want to see how well this will stack up against both of those. It would be a fair comparison against this one because this is an IC based amp. And then I'm going to go to the AS1100 and maybe pull another amp in there, some intermediate range, you know, the priced amp, just to see how it stacks up. And that's at the very end when I do the sound review. So, but the whole point is it's building a kit, and I'll just sum it up, is it's an experience. It's a process. It's a commitment. If you ever build a kit, you know what I'm referring to. If you haven't, it's just fantastic. You should try it. But maybe you should wait till I build this thing and tell you how easy it is and what it sounds like. But I think the ultimate sound, if Stereophile gave it a decent review, it's probably going to be good enough, right? That's not the point. The point is the journey of building it. And I think you can buy these assembled, but why? I don't think. I think the point is to build it yourself, and you learn a lot about how to construct audio amplifiers. You'll learn about soldering, about wiring, about how to identify components and their values, and other things. So it's a journey. And one thing, and the last thing I'll say about building a kit, and when I said it's a commitment, it's a commitment. The one thing I've learned over the years, whether it's a repair you're doing, or a project, whatever, a modification, or whether it's a kit building, you've got to carve out time for it. It's a commitment. You've got to carve out time, whether it's every night or every other night, this certain hour period or half-hour period, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you feel like. You might be bored with it, you might be, whatever, you just go do it. Because you go through, when you're building a kit, things wax and wane. Your interest wax and wanes, your boredom, your excitement, the whole thing. Just stick to it. So carve out those times. I say every night if you have a chance, but every other night, every third night, those are carved, put in the calendar. That's what you're going to be doing. You're not going to be watching The Simpsons. You're going to be working on the kit, whether you want to or not. Because you will go through periods where you get a little bored with it and a little fed up with it. Maybe a little frustrated. Got to go do it. And you'll overcome that. Okay, you'll overcome that frustration or boredom as you make progress and you see the progress and you're heading towards an end. Okay, so that's just some advice about kit building, and that's what I'm kind of looking forward to. So, it's all about fun and enjoyment. Edification, but fun and enjoyment. So that's the point here. Now, if I happen to get a decent amp, something I really like out of it, that's a bonus. And let's face it, folks, this is inexpensive. In fact, I don't even know how this guy makes any money. I've been working on audio for years and building projects and doing things, and just going out and, if you were to go out and buy an IC on a chip and the associated support components, and even if you had a schematic to work with, and the enclosure and the transformer and all that, I can see that adding up to $600 to $800. I don't know how. This is a bargain. I'm not sure how the gentleman even does it, Dan. Now, I should come back to the name of the company. Honestly, I don't know how to pronounce it. I've never talked to Dan. I only got an email from him. Not even sure. But I'm going to give it a go here. Well, when you look at it, it's Akitika. That's what it looks like. Akitika. Or Akitika. Akitika. It's one of those. Maybe I'll fire off an email to Dan and he'll tell me. Somehow do a phonetic thing by email. I'm not sure. So I'm just going to avoid pronouncing the damn thing until I figure out how it's pronounced. But anyway, looking forward to it. Excited that it's here. We're going to unbox it. And like I say, let me just say a couple more things before I have to go back to work here. I mentioned integrated circuit amps, and Stereophile in their article, they talk about some other coveted impressive amplifier that used the same chip. Let me see in my notes if I have the name of that, the number of that chip that they use in here. See that? This is how it goes with my videos. I got a bunch of pictures printed out, and I don't know. It's a Texas Instruments LM3886. There it is. LM3886. And I did print out the first page of the spec sheet. And they refer to it as an audio power amplifier, high performance, 68 watt. It's got a bunch of protection systems built into it. Excellent signal and noise ratio, they say. Whole mess of protections. Applications in component stereo, compact subwoofers, surround sounds, high-end stereo TVs. Okay, so, you know, and it yields good specs. And apparently that same chip was used in some other amp, and it was a name I never heard of and didn't know anything about, and a lot of audiophiles liked it. So it was used, that chip was used in some high-end componentry. And I'll tell you what else. Now, despite my aversion to integrated circuits and my criticism of them, I had, now this is something that a lot of people don't know, but Linn, L-I-N-N, the Linn Corporation, makers of high-end everything, their amps, at least they were, I don't know if they are these days, but the ones they made about 8 to 10 years ago, and even before that, they probably still are integrated circuit based amplifiers. And I know because I had one. It was a Linn, I think it was a Magic. And if you watch my previous video where I talk about my speakers when I had the Linn Ninkas, and even the AV5140s, I had those things. I had active crossovers, and to do that I needed a at least a 4-channel amp. So I bought this nice Linn Magic, and it was expensive. This is thousands of dollars. Okay, I got it 1 year on a bonus from work. So I had to buy this 4-channel amp, and I think it was even 5 channels, but I wasn't using one. But anyway, and I put active cards in there, so I had active crossovers for those speakers. And Linn had a white paper out about their amp, and the white paper they kept talking about building the amp around a monolithic circuit. And a monolithic circuit is just fancy diversionary language to say it's a damn integrated circuit on a chip. And so naturally curiosity got the best of me, and I had to know what integrated circuit it was, and I opened it up. Well, actually, I had to open it up to put the active cards in there for the, you have to open the top and you stick them in these little, but anyway, and it was based on the amplifiers in there were based on the ST Thompson TDA series. It was a 90, what the hell was it? 7293. Thompson Microelectronics. And that, by the way, and this is not a Linn amp, don't get me wrong, this is a cheapo that I built for a project, that I bought for a project. And there it is right there. Let's see if we can get a zoom in on it. There it is. So that is the, let me just take a look and make sure I'm right, the 7293 right there. That's an amp on a chip, and a lot of people love these things. And that Linn amp sounded just awesome. I wish I had it today to compare it to my Yamaha. I really would love to know the difference. But I rotate equipment, and that amp is long since gone. But it sounded, the amp itself, I loved. So that's evidence that you can get damn good amplifiers. And by the way, some of those Linn amps, some of their clouts, or I don't even know, I haven't checked the Linn website out for years, but some of their amps are highly reviewed. People love them, and they're very expensive. And they still have, you know, the heart of the system is still this same chip. So I'm going to try to overcome my prejudices and really give this thing a chance. So basically, in summary, the heart of this amp, the Akitika, is a regulated power supply, and the soul of this amplifier is an integrated circuit, the LM38, whatever it was, 86. And an interesting combination, and I'm hoping for the best. But the journey is going to be building it. And the let me get back to this real quick. See, no script. I bought a box. I wanted to do a TDA project, and I got this box up here that I've yet to open. It's been sitting there for more than a year. A box of those TDA Thomson Microelectronics TDA 7293s. And I was going to do a project and build an amplifier around them. I have this concept of the perfect power supply for an amplifier, and I was going to use that amp because I didn't want to concentrate on building a discrete amp. I just wanted to start out with a power supply. One day, maybe in my retirement, I'll be able to do it. I've got this idea for the perfect power supply, and it's my power supply is going to be the power supply equivalent to a Class AB amplifier heavily biased into Class A. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to give it away. But and I know that's not saying anything, but it's a design for a power supply that I've never seen anyone do on audio, and I wanted to build that power supply and then use it to power the TDA chip. Just as a starter, because I didn't want to build a whole amplifier. You know, I just wanted to use the TDA chip. If I destroy them here and there, who cares? Get a new one. And that's a project that I've yet to do. And so I ended up buying this amplifier because it had the enclosure that I wanted. Because by the time for my project amp, by the time I priced out all the, you know, the binding posts and the heat sinks and faceplate, everything, it was getting crazy into the hundreds of dollars. And this damn thing right here, this is some El Cheapo no name built in China thing. It was a complete amp based on the TDA, you know, with the toroidal transformer and all that. And I think this was like 80 some. It was ridiculous, like $80 or $90. It was just crazy. So I bought this just for the parts, and then I'm going to use the TDA modules, but I'm going to replace the power supply with my version of the perfect power supply. That's why I own this thing. That's a project for the future. In the meantime, I've got this. So I hope that's enough of an introduction. Let me just say this, and I'll sum up part one here. This is a little long-winded, I realize. This is just me kind of all over the place. But here is, and these are the notes, and I do make some notes, just to, I have to look down to occasionally to stay back on track. So I talked about the purchasing experience, and in my next series of videos about this amp, I'm going to talk about, well, the amp specs and the amp design. I'm going to get into more detail about the design of it. Then we're going to unbox it, and we're going to unbox it. I'm going to show you exactly what's in there and how it's packed, and we're going to lay it out. Then we're going to build it. And for that, I'm going to be very judicious in how I make the videos. I'm not going to go into a bore fest with you watching me, you know, solder every joint. That's not how it's going to work. But I'm going to show you step by step what the instructions say. I'm not going to deviate from the instructions. I'm going to follow them step by step, and I'll show you the end result of each section of the process. Then we're going to test it, and I'm going to follow the test procedures in the instruction manual, and then we're going to test it with my total harmonic distortion meter, as well as put some signals through it, scope it, and I'll run a couple stress tests on it to see if the protection circuitry works, that sort of thing. Nothing that's going to hurt the amp. Everything will stick within normal, decent parameters. Then we're going to listen to it, and I'm not going to be prejudiced, because I know I come into this with a prejudice against integrated circuits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into my system. I'm not going to listen to anything else for a couple days. I'm going to put it into my system. You know, once it's tested and I know that it's functioning within parameters, within the norm, and I'm just going to listen to it, and listen to it for days. and then do some critical listening and the various kinds of listening where that I do. And by the way, this amp will not have a problem driving my Klipsch Forte 3s. When my Forte 3s are at the loudest I can take them, my VU meters, which are calibrated to 8 ohms on the Yamaha, are saying that I'm putting out maybe a watt, and at normal listening levels, 1/10 of a watt. So this thing right here is way more than I need. So I'm going to do a listening test all by itself, just a listening evaluation of the amp, not factoring in comparing it to anything else. How do I like it? All by itself, in a vacuum. And then I'm going to do comparisons with the AS1100 with this. Okay, it's a fair comparison. This is the TDA series, but it's still an amp on a chip, and this has an unregulated power supply. There's no regulator here. This is our traditional. I think it's a split rail. It's a split rail with a toroidal and a rectifier and some filtering caps, and that's about it. Nothing else. No regulator. So then we're going to compare it to my other equipment, and then I'll just do an overall summary to wrap things up. And I hope that this turns out to be a good experience, not only for me, but for everyone watching, particularly if you feel like at some point building a kit, which is always fun and enjoyable and edified. It edifies you in so many ways, believe me. But it does require patience, as I mentioned earlier, and it does require commitment. Don't get frustrated. If you do, walk away, come back the next day. Okay, so that's the beginning. We're going to unbox this thing and talk about the specs and its design next. I'm going to call it a day because I've got to get back to work. Sorry for the relatively sporadic, chaotic, unscripted opening to the series, but it's just the way it's going to be. I'll try to do a little better and stick to the point in my subsequent videos. But then I always get on tangents and want to talk about other stuff. I'll try my best. So thanks for watching, and I'll try to start on part 2 tomorrow. Ciao.